Good evening, everyone. Right. So last session we discussed about class components. Have you tried that exercise? No? I given a task to try. You tried that? I think only 1-2 people submitted. What about others? Have you tried the task given to you? I asked you to practice one, right? No. So you submit that code what you have designed. So I asked you to try the shopping cart, right? So the shopping cart component to achieve certain functionalities we discussed, right? So here you try that exercise. If you are feeling any difficulty, let me know. So now one more option after understanding this, we have learned about how to use functional components and how to use class components, how to define the function component and class component. Next, after function and class component, in maintaining state for both components, what is state, how state works, what are the different ways. Now, one more technique you have to understand here is, in a function component, we used use effect hook, right? Use effect hook to define actions to perform on component mounting. And when in class component, how do we manage? Let's see one example for that. So how we handle API requests. This is an example of API with class component. Already we done that in function component. So this is our shopping component. Yeah. So this is our shopping component. Yeah. So this is the shopping component we already designed from the APIs. The same we have to do with class. I just explain the overview because already we designed it. So already we designed, we will see how we can manage the same in our class, right? This all functionality we implemented from the APIs. So the same how we can manage with class. So let's create one component now. Let's add a component here. So in the components, so shopping class demo, okay, .js. So here we will import, because it is a class component, we have to import React from React, right? And what you have to do, export default class, and this is shopping class. So class demo. So, and it should extends react.component base, and it renders and return some presentation. We'll use the class container fluid. So this is presentation, and we keep a header here. Same, rest of design is same. Class name BG danger and text white. So text center, and here we will add a span class name BI and BI cart one. So cart, and here I say shopping cart. Okay. And let's keep some padding here too. Okay. So this is a heading style. Now below that we will create a section, and this section will have the class name. This is row, and we have a nav. This have the class name as call3, and we have a main. As of now, I will just use 2, and we have the class as call9. Left side, we will use select category, right? And we will put a drop down. So class name form select. Now here we will use another container. So class name as dflex, flex wrap. Okay. So that is the container we have. Now we will keep this in the startup shopping class demo. Let's go to the index shopping class demo. Let's add that shopping class demo. Okay. That is in the startup now. That's the design. Now here we need to configure the state. We need categories, we need products, all these to happen. So how do we configure state in a class component? So for that you need a constructor. This constructor is a derived class constructor. It is expecting the properties, and we have to call the superclass constructor with properties as per the rules of JavaScript class. And here we need to configure state. State is an object. Here in the state we are expecting categories. It is an array. We are expecting products. It is also an array. So we are expecting categories and products which are array type. So now what we have to do is, when we will write 2 methods. So one is, because class contains methods. So one method is get categories is the method. What this method have to do? So this method have to fetch from HTTP fake store API, fake store API store API.com / what is it? Products / categories. And then we use a callback function response.json. And another in this promise, we have to use data. Data is coming, and we need to store this into this categories. It is a state. So how to set values into state? Yesterday we learned this dot set state. Set state. What is it? Categories. So categories, into the categories we will send this data. That's how we need to manage. So this is how we have to configure in a class component state. Function component state, already we saw how it works. And here, this is the class component state, how to define. So how do we define the state and how we can access the state? In function component, this happens when a component is initialized, that we managed using use effect hook, right? Here, the same work is done by component did mount. Component did mount defines an action. So when component loaded, finish. That means if component is loaded, because next level we will discuss the cycle. In the next point, we will discuss the component life cycle. There you will understand every phase of component. Initially, component did mount indicates when component is successfully loaded. When component is successfully loaded, what should happen? When component is successfully loaded, we have to load this dot, this dot, get categories. We have to load all the categories. When component is mounted, so we need to access this dot categories. That means now the categories are loaded. So here I want to display those categories. So what you have to do, so we need to create an map, that is this dot state dot categories dot map. We have to read every category, and we need to present an option. So this contains the category, and you need a key that refers to that category. Already we know all this iteration technique. Here only the point how we can access the state. How do we access and configure the state? This is in the class component working with these contents. Here I will inspect. So in the components here, so all these are ready. Everything is ready. You see here the components are loaded from the API. Means the categories are loaded from the API. This is basic how we can design a component. Same thing you have to do with the products, right? So no need to explain. I hope you can try that also. Now we need another option. What is it? Let's copy this, and we need another method. This is get what? Products. Get products, and this is all the products, and we need to apply that into the state. What is it? Products. Apply that into the state. Whatever data comes, now we need to display the products here, and we will design this dot state dot products dot map. We read every product, and for every product, so we will design here a card. For every product, we will design here a card. That means here we are configuring a card. So we are designing one card. So class name is card. So and margin 2, padding 2, and we will put a style. So here style. So width is some 200 pixel. Okay. Now in this, I will just add an image. So the image source is, that is product dot image, and its class name is card image top. And here we have height is configured with some 150 pixels, and we will add one more container here. So in this container, class name card header, and in this we will put a paragraph that will display the product title. This is enough. Rest of things you can try same like previous, right? So here, how do we configure this now? So we need to simply put a style. Here also we need a height, so as 160 pixel. Okay. Now this is ready to display all the cards here. That means we are configuring the API to handle the data from fake store and present the data in the UI. These APIs will take time little. We will confirm that there is no problem. It's fine. some problem in rendering this products where we have missed. We need to generate this card. So card is generated. Acha, we are not loading these products. This dot get products. Yeah. On component mount, we have to load these products, right? Yeah. So this will get all the products and categories and display. Now we need to add a filter for this, right? So when user selects, it have to display only the products that belong to that particular category. Now these are all the products here. So we have categories and products. Now we want to implement the filter on this. That means when I select any particular category, the category related products must display. So the same thing, but little different. What we have to do now, we have to define event for this drop down. So event binding is same as you learned in function component. We have to use handle category change. So this have to collect the category name through event argument. So now the drop down have to use that event. What is it? On change. What is it? Handle category change. Handle category change. Now this is a class component. Then we have to access that by using this dot handle category change. That means we are accessing this and we are managing, right? Handle category change, right? So now we are accessing all the categories. Now what we will do, we will collect the category name and filter only the products that belong to category. And I hope you know now problem will come, because yesterday already we discussed that if event is using state, then you have to bind that event in the constructor. Yesterday we learned about event binding, how it happens. So here we need to just configure. So fetch another option. We will use this dot. We will use get products. But get products is accessing all the products. We will change this reference now. What we will do, it will get products from specific URL. And that URL will be used here. So we will fetch that URL. So whenever we are accessing here get products, we will pass that URL, http fakestore.api.com/ what is it? Products. And when user is changing, then here we will simply write a simple option, this dot get products, and the URL is http fakestore.api.com/ products slash category slash category name comes from e dot target dot value. It will get the category value. This is the same concept as we learned in the function. Only the point here we are using this state. So now let's run this and see. We will face one issue when you are dealing with the component here. You can see here key property is fine. So that means we need to use the key for every card generated. So every card generated, what we will do here, we will put a key. Key will be the product ID. Already in that we have the product ID as the data. Yeah, now I will select here a category called jewelry, and you are expecting this error. Why? Because currently our event is using state, and as we discussed yesterday, it cannot use state until or unless it is binded. How to bind it? Two methods I told you. You can bind in the constructor. That means this event cannot use state until or unless it is binded with the state. How do we configure that? What is the event name? Handle category change. In the constructor, we need to define this dot handle category change is equal to this dot handle category change dot bind with this. Now the problem is solved. So these are the basic things we discussed as class techniques, right? When compared to function. So how class component works, right? Now this is ready. When I select jewelry, then it have to display only jewelry products. Now we don't have any problem in the event because it is registered with the state. It is configured with the state. Yeah, now you can see all these jewelry products will be displayed. Same, everything is similar how we designed in function. Only the difference is how you manage your events and how you manage the state, right? I hope you can finish this example with the same concept, right? What we designed with function components, the same you can design by using class. Only the change you will find in event binding and the state. Rest of all the concept will be similar. There is no change in this, right? I hope you are clear in this, right? We have discussed about two things: how to handle state and events in a function component, how to handle state and event in a class component. So if you are with this, I will copy this example here. This is the example. You need to finish this example as the previous with all other implementation, right? What I asked you to do as it. Now we have a how function component is designed and how it works, how class component is designed and how it works. And while working with components, the very important point you need to know now is about properties. So in React, you need to understand about properties. That means we call them as component properties. As we already discussed, what is a component Already we discussed that component is a template. Component is a template. So template means it contains markup, it contains styles, and it contains functionality, right? Functionality, markup, styles, and functionality. What is the purpose of component is reusability. That means we can reuse any component. But the question here is we have to reuse a component in two ways. Already we designed Netflix page. When we designed the Netflix page, there we were using register component, and every time the register component was same. Every time it was returning same. So we designed this Netflix page. Netflix index component, right? So we designed this Netflix index component. Netflix index component we designed. And Netflix index component, this is the Netflix index. In this Netflix index component, we designed a component. This is register component. And if we want to repeat that register component, so we have to just access it again. That means we designed a component and we are reusing that component. We are reusing the component. So every time the component is returning same. But what we want is we have to reuse the same component with different data. That means the main intention of creating component is you can use it as it is any number of times, or we can use with different data. For example, you will find such things everywhere, right? So for example, let's see, suppose we are visiting any website, like I'll just give one simple basic thing here. Suppose you see like Amazon. When you visit this Amazon, you see in this Amazon, these are cards. These are cards. We have a banner, we have cards. Now, these cards are not same every day. Every few days, every day, these cards will be changing their data. Right? Now, we have to design. Actually, what I done in our shopping observe. In this shopping class, I designed shopping class demo. I designed a card here. I designed a card here. You can see I designed a card here. I designed a card here. Suppose I want the same card in several other locations with different types of data, then I cannot rewrite this logic again and again. That means I cannot design this again and again. That means I want this template to be used various locations with different data. In that case, what we have to do is we need to create a component which can accept different data dynamically. And it can present. That means what is the purpose of properties? That means properties allow to pass data dynamically into any component. So that means you can pass data into a component dynamically so that you can use it in a different way. Let's see how we can do this, how we can configure and use. And properties are same. So properties are same in both function component, and it is same in class component. But how to utilize them and how to use them, we will see. So how we can use the properties in a function component and class, right? Let's see. Actually, when you design, so syntactically, when you design a function, export function, and the function name is card. Card is a component, right? We are designing a card component. Now I want this card to present in a card style with different data. Then this can expect the properties. Previously, when we created components, it was parameterless. Now it is parameterized. Already I told you what is the purpose of function with parameters. What is the purpose of a function with parameters? The purpose of a function with parameters is to modify the function. Parameters are used to modify the function. Now I want this card component to modify its functionality according to the situation. So here what we are doing is, here see, when we are configuring properties, we have to return some presentation. We have to return some presentation, and our markup we will return. Whenever we return our markup into that, we will use this properties. We will use that properties. That means every time whenever you access this, you have to pass the properties and it will handle those properties. That means how do we access this component? We will access the component, and into that it will get the properties. Into the properties you can pass any value dynamically. This is how we design our own component with our own properties. Right? How do we configure the properties and handle them? Let's see. For example, now this is the presentation of card. I will remove this now. I will remove this. So here I want to present a card style. If I want to present a card style temporarily, I will put an empty one. Later we will put that here. So just to solve the compile issues. Now what we want is, for every product we need to design a card. So let's do. What to do is, I am adding a new file. I will give the name as card component.js. And we can design this export function, and the function name is card component. This card component is expecting properties. It is expecting properties, and here we have to return a presentation. So we have to return a card. The class is card. We have to return a card. So with margin 2, with padding 2, and with some style is width as 200 pixels, like this. So we are designing a simple card here. That means what this component will do is, it will return a card, and in this card it will have an image, and this image will be having the source. The source will be the props dot image. If I write like this, that means by seeing this, now as a JavaScript developer, you can understand what is the type of props. What is the type of props? By seeing this, what you understood? JavaScript, use your JavaScript brain. It indicates that it is object type. That is what you have to know. That means now the props is an object type. Suppose I am doing something like, in the presentation, suppose I am doing like props dot map. Am I right? If I am doing like this, I am doing some manipulations like this. That means I am expecting prop as what type? Prop as what type? It is an array, because map can be used on array. It is an iterator. That means you can decide what should be the type of property. It can be a simple string. It can be a number, or it can be an object, or it is an array of objects. It can be anything. So now I am expecting it as an object. We want only one data to display. In that case, what we will do here is we will simply put an image, and here we have an src. This is props dot what image, and we have width, so class name, so card image top, and we have height, so some height, so 160. Okay, now below this I will put another div. In this we have the class name. This is a card header, and in this we put some paragraph. Here I say props dot image. Sorry, this is title. That means now we designed a simple style and height, and it is 160 pixel. Okay, now we designed a simple component, and this component is rendering a card. I want this component to use in my shopping page, right? That means now how to access the component. You know that first you have to import that component here. Am I right? Import what to import? So we have to import card component from the card component. After importing card component here, so in the iteration, I can just directly access the card component. Now this card component is expecting some data as properties. That means we have to pass the properties, right? You need to configure the properties. That means it is expecting some properties. Into the properties, we have to pass the value. What is the value to pass? I will pass a product, because this properties is what type? The properties is object type. If property is an object type, then we have to send an object, and this product is an object. It is an object. Now what this card component will do is it will accept the properties. It will accept the properties, and it will use those properties in this presentation. That means this component is going to render that presentation here. So we will keep that shopping class demo in the startup. That means it has to get that component and display here. That means we are designing a component and configuring the properties for the component, and it is able to get the data and display the data here. And for all of them, it is generating 20 products are there. It is taking time to load. Or some problem is there. Let's check. What is the issue? It may be key issue, na? Right. So every child component. So here every child component should refer to what key? And key is a property, and it should be, what is it? Product dot id is used as a key. But actually key is not a property of your own component that you have designed. It is not your own property that you have configured. It is a predefined property, right? Now here, so what is the details here? I think image and title are missing. Where it is? So here, what is the object to display here? It is generating, but data is not passed. Once we'll check. This is a class function. This is class component, right? So this is a class component. In the class component, we are passing the data. Our main component is which one? Class. The product ID. I will just here return here a function. Means these properties are passed or not, we will check once. Component is generated. Let's check 20 are coming. Value. So let's present this value first here. We will put in value props dot props dot title. The object name wrong. Props is sending an object. What is that object? Product, right? Product object. That is not. It is only one object only. Yeah? This props is what type? Product. I will check this one. And here, what is the property? Object is correct. Let's check anything else is the issue. Acha, so this is using some DOM. What is this function? This is using the properties. Yes.
Sir, please try with props.product.title.
No, that's not. Products dot title is just only, this is an entire product now.
Yes, yes. You are passing the
No, no,
property name product.
that
So
is
that's
fine.
why props.product.image props
No,
dot
the parameter is product, right?
no parameter is props. In that props, you need
No,
to
already we done that. That's not the point
yeah.
actually.
Here you can put
No, no,
props.product.image.
already we done that.
Okay, okay.
Already we done that. That is not the point. Actually, it is expecting. Yeah, fine. Here we changed this one, right? This actually we were passing earlier as props. That was the issue, right? That was the issue, right? So it's fine. So actually what previously happening is, previously what happening is we used the category. What is the parameter name? Props. In that props, we are passing an object called product. We are passing an object called product. So here what happens is I used this props to pass, but actually the object it is expecting is product. That means we have to use that name, right? That means here it will be what? Product. Because this is an object. This object is same like a state. This object is same like state. So properties object is same like state. That means actually how it is configured. It is same like state means it is a props. Props is a collection of another key and value. So what happens here is when you configure the properties, this properties is having the key called product, right? In that product, we have to pass the product value. So this is where the mismatch happened, right? So we are directly trying to access this props dot the ID references, but actually it is a reference of key and values. So that you can define by using this method, right? So how we can configure any particular component, so, and how to define the properties into the component. What is the purpose of this? The purpose of this is nothing but we can reuse this anywhere, and by passing some new data into it. By passing some new data into it, we can reuse and we can configure, right? This is technically how we can manage data with the properties. Data with property. Either it is class component or it is function component. Suppose this is example for, so we created a function component. What is it? Card component dot js. In this card component, we configured this as a function component. Copy this, yeah. And our shopping component dot js. In this, we have all this logic. Just only here we made the change, right? Now, if that is here, if this is a class component, that means we will change this to a class component. So we will change as a class component. We will see. I will keep this presentation as it is. We will change this to class component now. So what is it? Export. So default class and card component, and it extends React dot component. It is using a constructor In that constructor, what we have? Properties, and here we have super constructor with the props. Now in this, what we are doing is we are configuring. So render method with return, this will return, and it will return this card, will return this card. But this time these properties are related to class. That means how we can access by using this dot props dot product dot image. And here we need to configure this dot props dot product dot title. Right? The same approach, but this time we changed it to class. Right? Accessing it will be same. Any component accessing will be same. Right? So this time we have to import that component and use it. So because it is now marked as class, so we have to import, what is it? Card component from card, because it is marked as default. Now we are accessing the component and we are displaying the data into it. So presentation is same. There is no change in the presentation, just only the way of designing the component is different. That means we have to configure the card, and we need to define the properties. The properties will be what type? It will be same. Presentation is same. Only the way of presenting the data will be changed. Just we have to configure props. Right? So can we have multiple properties? We can have multiple properties. We can define multiple properties, because already we said that this is of what type? Object. That means we can configure multiple properties for a component, and we can define multiple properties. So the same, but this time this is by using class. So this is the example here. Yeah, card component. This is an example of function component. So similarly, if I want to design a card with class component, so class component, then we have to use this logic. This is same, but this time the properties are accessed by using this. Right? So what is the purpose of properties? So that they can allow to reuse the component with different data. Later we can implement in so many examples, like designing grids, designing cards, designing headers or footers with different types of rendering data. Right? So components, and how do we deal with the properties? This is the combination of function and class components and handling them. Another important in the components, as we already discussed, we learned all this under the concept of data binding. Under the concept of data binding, we discussed all this, how we can handle the data binding. Now important is, along with data binding, the other techniques we have: style binding, another one we are having class binding, and event binding. All these three things we discussed. So we discussed data binding, style binding, class binding, and event binding. Data binding is React supports one way. We have learned how to handle two-way by using event binding concept. Now, why you need style binding or class binding? That is the point. One small concept we will understand. Because actually for a card div, I can apply style is equal to, so width as suppose 200 pixel. Then why to write div with a style with this kind of binding expression? This is what we are writing now. Why do we have to write this? That means directly, so see here, so style, I am writing the style, so and I am configuring the style just with width, right? Style width is suppose 300 pixel. I am writing style width 300 pixel. That means it is going to handle with that size, width as 300 pixel. But here, so here we have the issues. When you are dealing with the issues, we have some issues with the div. It is nothing but it is saying that dynamically it cannot handle the style. So it says that style is a property that expects the properties to the values, not a string. Not a string, because actual concept is in HTML it works. HTML it works. Why this is not supported? So because React uses, right? React uses virtual DOM. React uses virtual DOM. When React uses virtual DOM, actually the original DOM I already explained in the introduction. In the introduction, we already discussed that generally how the content is rendered. How the content is rendered. I will show a simple point here. How the content is rendered finally. Actually, the simple flow I will give here. Generally, what happens? So we return the markup, right? Already explained in the introduction. So suppose we designed the markup and we configured some styles. We designed markup and configured the styles. And we already discussed this point that whatever the markup and the styles you have defined, this actually markup uses a DOM, is converted into DOM, nodes and all we discussed. And styles will convert a CSS OM. That means markup is going to convert a DOM, and the CSS is used for a CSS object model. Document object model is related to HTML, and the styles, this is CSS object model. These two models, whatever the models you configured, the DOM and the CSS object model, these two together are configured into a layout, right? And they are configured into a rendering. After the rendering, they will paint. This is the process we discussed. This happens in actual DOM. Now actually in React we are using virtual DOM. That means React is going to handle on a virtual DOM a duplicate for this. When it is going to handle on virtual DOM directly, here style, when you are defining style, it cannot be a string, because this string refers to the original DOM, right? Original DOM. Now the virtual DOM have to use a style which have to use an object with the key and value. These values are rendered into this object reference. Understood? That means virtual DOM uses the styles in a dynamic object. Dynamic object, because it comprises of only properties. This need to map to the actual DOM styles. Actual DOM styles. So this is related to virtual, and this is related to actual. If you are writing styles for actual DOM, the style must be configured as an object with string type. And if you are configuring for virtual DOM, and it should be a style with key and value. That means React have to use only this virtual syntax, because it is not going to directly handle the actual DOM. So that is the reason why this is not supported in React. Why we have to write in this way? Because it is mapping to virtual DOM. And what is the advantage of this? What is the advantage of style binding? What is the advantage is React style binding allows to change the styles dynamically. allow to change the styles dynamically. You can change the styles dynamically by using this style binding. Even class binding also same. That means React class binding allows to change the class dynamically. Change the class dynamically. You can change the classes dynamically. You can change the styles dynamically. So how we do this in JavaScript? In JavaScript, in order to change, JavaScript uses style property actually. JavaScript uses style property to change the style dynamically. That means what it does, it will use the element have a property called style. In that we have to put the effect. Style have the style property name. What is it? Suppose background color. And we have to configure the value into it. Right? That is how it configures. But now in React, we don't need to do this. We just need to bind style with the object dynamically. And what is the advantage of this is it can change this object dynamically. It can change this object dynamically. Dynamically changing any presentation, dynamically changing the styles. This all comes under the concept of, generally we call this as conditional rendering. We call this as conditional rendering. This is called as conditional rendering. Many times people have this as a separate topic. That means conditional rendering means according to situation, it will change the output. For one situation, it will display one, another situation, it will display another. Have we used this conditional rendering? Have we used this conditional rendering? Just now we used already in that. So already in the APIs, when you select a category related products will come. If you select all products will come. That means it is changing all products, and products belong to specific category. Already we are doing it. But we will see some other examples also. Conditional rendering means it will decide which component to render according to the situation. According to situation. That means you can have multiple components. For example, user selects login, then login will be rendered. So it selects register will be rendered. Or user successfully logged in, then success page will be rendered. If errors are there, then invalid page will be rendered. That means it will decide according to situation. Already we used that in our shopping example, but we will see in later stage. Here style have that facility. That means let's see one simple example how we can change the styles dynamically. Till now what we have done, we have applied the styles manually. We have applied the styles manually. You are configuring the style object manually. How we can change the styles dynamically? We can change the style dynamically. Let's see. For example, we will create one simple page. I hope we already have a login page. This is just a simple. Let's create a simple login page. Already we have this login component. Let's create a clean login component here. I will just create an export default component function, and this is login component. Now in this we are returning. So we are returning a simple presentation, and here we will design so a data term, some username, and the data definition. So we have input type text. Okay, now I will just use n tag is enough here. And here I am using password and data definition. So we have input type is equal to password. Right. Now here we have a button, right? And we just added as login. Now here I am defining a simple heading as user login, and let's put because we are using already container fluid, and here we are defining uh, a checkbox. Let's keep a div here. Yeah. And class name as form switch. And in this, we have input type is equal to checkbox. Checkbox. And here I will put as dark theme. And here, yeah, we will put the class name as form check input. Yeah. This is the login component. Let's start this login component. That means we are accessing the login component and displaying. This is the login component. And when I select dark theme, the theme must be applied to this entire form. So we want to apply that theme to that entire form. That means dynamically, we want to change the style. Right? Then how you configure that? How you can dynamically change the style? Actually, this is all in a container, suppose. This is all in a container. And in this container, we need to change the styles dynamically. That depends on this checkbox. Depends on the checkbox. So how do we configure? How do we define here? We need to write an event for this checkbox. So how do we handle that? So handle theme change, right? Handle theme change. This handle theme change. So this is the function, right? It is a function, handle theme change. It will take the checked property of this checkbox. That means we will define on change, handle theme change, and we have to get its checked property. That means we can configure here a state. Let's configure a state. We are defining a constant, that is theme, and we have set theme is equal to use state. And this is the state, and theme is an object. Theme is an object. Theme is an object. You can just configure as an object. Now handle theme change. What should happen is we have to set theme. In the theme, the object will be using the property. What is the property? Background color. So we have to define the property. Property is background color. What should be the value? So the background color value, the value is suppose black. Background color value is black. That means that is the option we are configuring. And here we are defining color. Color is white. So we are defining these options and specifying. Now, very important, this must be applied when the checkbox is checked. Checkbox is checked. That means this depends on a condition. If E dot target dot which property checked. If it is checked, then theme will be applied with this. If not, that means if it is not, then we will use set theme. Dynamically, we are changing it. So dynamically, we are changing here same background color. We will set it to white, and the color we will set it to black. That's how we are configuring. And this theme should be applied as a style for this object. That means the div contains a style which will come from theme. That means we are configuring that theme here. This is generally the dark theme. It will apply to that. We can add a lot of other effects, right? So that means this is applying the theme for this. Actually, we have a lot of things to define because it is a container. I am using another option like width. So width is suppose 200 pixel. We have padding. Padding is suppose 10 pixel, right? So that the same thing I need to configure. So width and padding, I need to configure for this. That means when you are applying, it will apply the theme, right? So 250, right? Because we have the container with that size. So it will be fine, right? So it will be fine. It will display this. I am dynamically changing the effect and configuring. We can apply the classes or we can apply the styles. So why you need style binding? We need style binding just to handle the situation of changing the effects dynamic, right? We can apply through classes or we can apply through the styles. That is the example. So how we can configure the style binding? This is one example. So you can try the same with the classes also, how we can apply a class dynamically to that particular container, depending on what you have configured. Because actually, if I want to apply this through a class, we need to apply this through a class because already we have Bootstrap working. If already Bootstrap is working, so here we can just put this. Here we can just put class name. Class name, can we get a dynamic value? Class name will come from theme. Theme is using the class name. That means it can be style or it can be class. That means a theme is a class. But in that case, you should configure this as a class. That means this theme is not as an object now, because class is just a what type? String. Class is a string type, string array, right? It is not an object, right? That means it is just a string type with multiple classes separated with spaces. It's not an object type. Then we have to configure the theme as this. And if it is checked, what we have to do? We have to use set theme. It is a string type, right? What is the theme? It is expecting a string. So we will apply bg dark. We will apply text white. We will apply padding 2, right? We will apply W25, that is width 25. This is a string we are applying. The same thing we will apply here. So we will put set theme. So this will be BG light. So this will be text dark, and other options are same. This time we are changing the class. We are changing the class dynamically. Right here also same effects. That means width. Suppose I said 50, depending on how much content you are having, and it will get that, and we can apply that dynamically. This time we are applying the classes dynamically. So why you need class binding and why you need style binding? So that we can change the styles dynamic. We can configure and change the styles dynamically. So for that you need this option. This is an example for the same with class. Dynamically applying the styles and dynamically applying the classes. So much is there in event binding and data binding. But as a developer, we are not satisfied with this type of approach to handle the forms. Why? Because lot of event binding techniques, lot of references we have to configure. Now, to handle this situation, to overcome this problem, we can depend on third-party forms. That means now React can use third-party forms. By using those third-party forms, we can make this simplified. Data binding, interacting with the data, collecting the data from the form, we can make it simplified. So for that, you need to know how to use the third-party forms. Forms, validations, how to configure. That we'll see next session. Tomorrow, we will do that, right? So in tomorrow's session, we will see how to handle, okay?